Here are some criminals who outlived their time between the four walls and had to re-enter a life vastly different from the one that they had been so accustomed to. Number 2. Charles Edrit Ford. Charles Edrit Ford's conviction was one of the many unfortunate cases of wrongful conviction and racial profiling. He was initially sentenced to life in prison for first degree in 1952, despite not being at the scene of the crime. Later in 1975, he was charged again with second-degree assault while out of prison for a leave of absence. The victim of the crime said that she had observed a man standing by a red Ford Pinto, a car that was registered as a rental under Ford's name. However, Ford was not responsible for committing these acts of which he was accused. In both the 1952 and 1975 trials, the entire jury was white, as was the judge. During the trial, there was also little evidence presented to suggest that he was guilty, and he was not even allowed to bring in any witnesses to testify that he was, in fact, not at the scene. The 1952 conviction was only reopened in 2016 when Judge Helen Harrington discovered that Ford's lawyer failed to file an appeal to review his sentence, and also found that the judge on the case failed to inform Ford of his post-trial rights. This allowed Judge Harrington to throw out the case. As for the 1975 conviction, Judge West sentenced Ford to 5 years and 2 years of unsupervised probation. When the sentence was given, Ford began to cry openly in the courtroom. He finally got the freedom he deserved. Ford spent a total of 64 years in prison, entering prison at 19 years old before finally being released on March 23rd of 2016 at 84 years old. The real suspect, Jake Robinson, eventually confessed, and a court review found no evidence to show Ford had anything to do with the crimes. Unfortunately, shortly after Ford's release, he learned that he had an aggressive form of lung cancer. Although he was finally free, he spent the last few months of his life surviving off charity and donations, which covered his funeral, as he never received any compensation for his wrongful conviction, and 3 decades on condemned row. You hear stories like this and you realize how insane people sound when they don't think racism is still real.